Welcome. Just about to kick off the YouTube stream. Hey, and welcome everybody to the Obsidian Blade Medicine Hour. It's Monday, and Monday has a number and a to it, but I don't even know what number it is. But welcome to the Obsidian Blade Podcast Medicine Hour. If you're a Shift crew member, part of the Empath Nation, part of Team Transition, wherever you are on the journey, the path back to life, I'm so stoked that we're hanging out. And today I really wanted to cover what I'm calling some shaman basics, energy being basics. Really looking at, hey, good morning, Richard Ote, A-O-K Ote. And I hope everyone's doing good on this Monday morning as we align with the divine that rests within inside of us. Caitlin, what's up? Good morning. So in this episode, I really want to tackle a few things that in regards to walking back to life, energy being basics, and really settling into our power as we dive in here. Just adjusting some stuff here for the YouTube feed. And so, hey, if you're new to the channel, welcome. This is what we do. We talk about all things shift as empaths, healers, and creators blossoming into our full abilities. We're here to navigate the exit of that kind of slave matrix system that we've all been enrolled in, this kind of hyper outward focus of our lives, and we're reclaiming the power within us. And as we do that, we transition from the land of the dead to the, and cleansing our shadow side so that we can come back to life and become the shift that we're seeking to live in our full power on a new earth in the light of the six sun star system. And I've got some maps. You are the crew, so let's handle this. Let's get into it. Let's dive deep. Yeah, some Energy 101 is what we want to cover here. So it's interesting. I take a look at, the conversation that's out there on the web, on the World Wide Web of what is spirituality and that kind of whole process. And it's interesting because I Googled spiritual news, right? Like we can go to CNN or we can go to BBC or any sort of like news outlet and we can see like, what's the hot story? Emma, good morning. We can see what's the hot story in the world, right? But when it comes to spirituality, what's the hot story? The short answer is, turns out the hot story is you. But it's interesting that spirituality in and of itself is not news, right? It's not news. I mean, of course, there's astrology, what's going on in the stars and how that's affecting us. And Lourdes, good morning. We can look at those type of events of what's happening in the now. But other than the now, spirituality is not news. So it's interesting if we take a look at that world, what is it, or that word or the concept, what does it mean to be spiritual? Well, being spiritual is not the end goal, right? It's actually the first base you want to get to. Because really when you do your work and you have a practice, it's really setting you up to be the most optimized being of energy that you are, right? So spirituality is not the goal. It's really the beginning of massive action once you have a solid practice in your life. So, and what type of action are we talking about? Well, since we cover all things shift, and as we're transitioning to Age of Aquarius or Sixth Sun, the actions that we're needing to take are both for ourselves and for the world, right? So our actions can be seen as, how are we being true to ourselves? Are we knowing who we really are? Are we doing that levels of practice where we're cleansing out old belief structures? And then the massive action that we're seeking to take as someone who has decided, okay, I'm now a spiritual being. it's really that kind of old concept or new concept, if you haven't heard it before, the Bodhisattva Vow, where you're committed to not only your enlightenment, but everyone's enlightenment. And the official description of a bodhisattva is one who doesn't reach enlightenment or transcend until everyone has transcended first, meaning you're staying in the game of illusion or separation, or the illusion of separation, until you make sure that everyone's gotten out free, gotten out of their own cage, and assisted with everyone getting out of their own cage. And then you do your thing. So really, it's just to say, like I said, being spiritual is not a very newsworthy event. It's what you do as a spiritual person, or someone who has a practice, or someone who has done, or who, if you don't want to say the word spiritual, because I'd like to move away from that word too, I see it more as actually being a human being. This is a great point. If we stop making spirituality and a human being two separate things, and we start making them one thing, then really this is just about being a more dynamic, more empowered, stronger human being that defies all of the previous descriptions of what it means to be a human being and what it means to be alive and what we can do and what we can't do. So really, let's drop the word too, spirituality, and just make it about being a human being that's powerful. And a human being that, rather than having to take a bodhisattva vow, a human being who recognizes that there is no disconnection between them on the inside and them on the outside. And so what do we do here? We're tasked with not only taking care of the stuff that keeps us alive and keeps us healthy, but what about the whole organism of existence as it's materialized here on the earth? How are we taking a vow of massive action to make sure that no one is suffering, especially in our immediate circle, but if not the entire planet? Because look at the potential that we have now. We have a cell phone that's connected to the web. It's networked, right? So your power is now infinitely networked to touch a whole globe. So, as I'm kind of saying this is energy being basics. We want to start with where we are and recognize the new paradigm and to anchor the new paradigm. And this is really energy being basics that I'm talking about here as we walk back to life, right? We're walking back to life together. And, always the first step is, accepting that you have power and to heal that power and that you're here to do things, right? Which is definitely about being the change that you seek first. We can't model leadership if we're not even leading ourselves to being the example we want to see in the world. So, of course, definitely we stop complaining and we start embodying. And of course, that's through our practice. And we are on that path of discovering what is your authentic voice, what truly sings to you, what is the potential that you've agreed within yourself that you can reach. And always, can you take what you think is your potential and examine it and say, maybe I can do better. Maybe I can aim higher. And maybe, and this is the thing about becoming a fluid energy being, is that maybe the current belief structure that you have that creates your personality, is up for grabs. So both are up for renegotiation. Not only what you believe, but the being who believes those things, right? Which we're calling your personality. Both of those are up for grabs as we align with the truth that's inside of us and we align with the change that we want to see in the world. It's not just your beliefs, but it's the being who believes those beliefs that need to be examined. So both levels. and being comfortable with the change in your personality, the transformation of your personality into maybe somebody entirely new. And not just anybody, but a new personality that is capable of meeting the goals that are inspiring you, meeting the life that's drawing you forward and expanding, right? It's this shift of, we don't demand that life come and meet us where we're at. We set new standards and we say, how do I grow? How do I get stronger? How do I expand in order to meet my goals or in order to meet my mission? So, checking in where we're holding ourselves back and putting up on the psychic. I don't know if you want to sell your old personality on the psychic Craigslist, but you can definitely have a garage sale or just let that shit go. So, definitely, to acknowledge that we're inspired by others. That's why we have, the ability to choose who we hang out with in most cases. We're inspired and we're influenced by others and we're influenced by environment. And, that's the upside, again, to this whole social media world that we live in, is that we now can come into contact. If you don't live near diversity, you can now see diversity at least and know that it exists, and that's always a mirror back to you of what's a potential for you. And always to remember that environment. And again, this is kind of where we're getting back into energy basics here. Environment has a definite effect on you, but we can't be victims anymore to that. So if we need to create an environment that matches the inside of us first, then we need to do that. And that's kind of the big clue. Who are you first? Again, if you've set a ceiling inside of you that's frustrating you, you're going to have to root that out. You're going to have to transform that. So the first step in this massive transformation is ending being victimized and being hyper externally focused and enslaved to, Good morning, everybody. So again, there's a relationship that we're in. We're in kind of multi-relationships, but definitely there's that relationship between who you're agreeing to be on the inside and how that's showing up on the outside of you. And the paradigm that we're moving from is being a hyper externalized focused being, a hyper externally focused and kind of enslaved and victimized to what's happening on the outside of us. Like it's a world out of control and there's bad people and there's good people and there's things I don't like and there's things I do like. And okay, we all have to take responsibility for where we have been agreeing to the things that we don't like. That's the critical part. Where have you been agreeing to the things that you don't like and then suffering because of it? Thinking that, compromise is part of the deal. I think that's part of the paradigm that we're moving out of, is that compromise is part of your life. Compromise doesn't need to be part of your life. That doesn't mean you're like a jerk somehow now because you've decided to, honor who you really are. But we have to, again, switch these paradigms where we've settled. We've settled for the lower version of what it means to be human. We've settled for the lowest common denominator of human potential. And that's the downside of being part of this, like a hyper externalized focused person, because, we can really get attached to the actions of people who are doing things unconsciously or doing things very consciously, but in the name of greed and in the name of violence and in the name of pain, right? We can be really attached to people's externalized victimhood or power games. Boy, oh boy, humanity, we really have got to get out of the power game trip. It's really indicative of the old world. What I mean by power games, I'm talking about like the massive levels of greed that go on in this world. Greed to the levels of where we barely have a concept of how greedy some of the older energies in humanity are operating at, and what they will do to maintain their power position on all of their money and all the power that comes to them through the system that they've built up, a system that requires your participation. So really, this is kind of my trip, when I see a lot of, education out there, or like, e-courses that you can take on like, achieve your 6-figure income lifestyle. Yeah, be wealthy, do what you want, align with who you really are. But what are we really still doing on that game? Because that game relies upon you still playing in the old system. And it's a compromise. It's a compromise to still play in that old system, because that system is set up that some people win and some people lose. It's a system that says not everybody can have what they want, because that system believes that if everybody gets what they want, then there's going to be none left for me. That's the old paradigm that we're leaving. And that's why there's greed, because greed is a defensiveness on a certain level of like, or a core belief that if everybody gets what they want, then there's going to be none left for me. So I better dominate and take everything so that at least I'm okay. That's the old paradigm we're leaving. And so when we set up our path to be energetically clean and aligned with ourselves, we do have to examine where we may be participating in an old economic model that says I better get mine first and leave somebody out in the cold. That's not where we're headed. The Aquarian age fully recognizes that there's more abundance than you possibly know what to do with. There is more infinite riches than you could ever experience and spend. So really come from the place, and no matter what you're doing, that everybody has access to this, and everybody's going to get theirs. Whatever their version of theirs is, you have access to it. There's healthy levels of competition where you push and you drive and you grow yourself forward, but there doesn't need to be the competition that only a few can have what you desire and everybody else has got to get, kicked out into the cold. So just a subtle thing to really be aware of when we pursue, what we want. And again, how I kicked off this talk was, I talked about what is a spiritual being? What does it mean to be spiritual? And that being spiritual is not the end goal. Being spiritual in and of itself is not newsworthy. It's what you do as a spiritual person that's newsworthy, or that's financially abundant to you or financially abundant to others. It's what you do as a spiritual person that creates change for yourself and for others for the better, for liberation. So, and then we're in this stage of being spiritual aware people. Tiger Fresh, what's up? We're being aware that reality, what's outside of us, is always a very dedicated and true map to what you're entertaining, what you're holding to be true, where your focus is. So if we really see reality or outward projected reality as a faithful lover, a faithful friend that's accurately 100% mirroring back to you what you hold vibrationally to be true inside of you, then we can stop being victimized by external reality. We can stop blaming others or complaining and go, the map is fucking real. The map is legit. I'm honoring the clarity of the map. I'm honoring that reality is being faithful, utterly faithful to me. So if I don't like how the external is looking and I'm seeking and I'm inspired by change, then we do the work on the inside, right? And we start falling in love with ourselves. And we start having a great relationship with ourselves where we examine, okay, reality is going to match who I am on the inside. How's the inside? How's my relationship with the inside? And am I being kind to myself? And truly, like for myself, when I look at my desires, say in relationship or career, where am I limiting myself? Or where am I compromising? Where am I saying, I can only jump 10 feet when I really desire to jump 100 feet? And why this idea that time is a factor? Why the idea that I've got to be a good boy and that I've got to wait rather than just having that exact reality, the full potential of it realized in my body now. Now. So this, again, when we find out our true desires and we're relying upon reality to be our total match to our desires, then we start within and say, okay, where am I not giving myself the full lottery ticket, the full jackpot, the full yes, that's the exact thing I want. The exact thing I want. And, as I was saying earlier, we are faced with what we believe when we do that type of work. And so not only do we have to let go of our agreements, but maybe the entire personality that is the collective of those agreements, the full cherry bowl of those agreements. And you may have to let go of that personality altogether to expand, to take on the fullness of what you're desiring. You're going to have to be pretty much what we call like a superhero, right? We have to be okay with I'm going to drop limiting aspects of myself in order to adopt new aspects of a personality that can handle what I'm calling forth. I can't be the same person that is going to be my desires, even if you stayed the same person and you manifested your desires, you would still be a different person because now you're experiencing something new, and we are tied to our experiences. But the experiences we truly desire are actually sometimes asking us to become someone new. And so that's not a dangerous thing. And I don't want you to push yourself hard when you start to conceive what that means. Who could I become in order to match my desires? It's always got to feel good, right? The work to get there may be hard, right? It's gym time. It's stretching yourself. That's going to be the hard part. But in the end, feeling the amazingness of becoming what you seek is definitely the kind of vibration you want to stay with, so that you're not putting yourself in an awkwardness or a harmful state to get to where you want to go. So we look at energy basics. As we walk back to life, these are some of the basics. Reality is a faithful mirror to what you're holding on the inside, right? And we're not being victimized by reality, but thanking it, going yeah, thanks for showing me exactly where I'm at, be it in the positive side or the negative side. And that, as an energy being, as we're living in the new paradigm, we have to make that switch to everything is alive. So right now we look at things that are around us, like a table, a chair, a car. We look at these materials as dead, but they all come from the mother. And though they aren't in their original form, we've taken sand and we've turned it into glass. We've taken steel ore and turned it into steel, into cars, and we've taken oil and turned them into tires and things like that. But we have to accept that everything, even though it may have changed form through human manipulation, it's still alive. So it's kind of a fundamental shift that we have to begin with. Like, what are the new rules? What are the new fundamentals for New Earth? Well, one of them would be everything is alive. Everything is alive. And everything is changeable. Everything is fluid, and everything is alive, and everything is interactive, right? We've got to move out of the land of the dead, where we're disengaged and like disconnected from the world outside of us. And we go, everything is alive, and I am connected to this, and I have a responsibility for moving in a way that models New Earth, or at least models the life that I want to live with the standards and the values that I want to live. And so everything is alive. And this is just a basics that we need to, live fully. Everything is alive and everything is interconnected. And I and you have a responsibility. If everything's interconnected, then we have a responsibility for being the change that we seek first and to model that new levels of leadership. There's just two things I actually wanted to get into this morning about actual technique and meditation and technique in cleansing your chakras, because I think this is a really fascinating thing that intuitively came to me this weekend. And I just want to say before I go into that, hey, what's up? I'm so glad everyone's here. I'm so grateful that we're sharing time together, going into like the current state of energy in the now and the techniques to, anchor who we are, what we are, and where we are as fully realized conscious beings who make the news, not by being spiritual, but by doing things as energy aware beings. And so, spirituality is not enough. It's our actions that we take as energy beings. So the first technique I actually want to get into is this I call it singing the chakras, right? So this is really fascinating. I've seen in the past, like there's been material around, what energy or note, like musical note is the first chakra. What energy vibration or frequency or musical note is the second chakra or the third chakra. And then I can create a practice where I sing this particular note and it means I'm singing the first chakra, or I sing this particular note and I'm singing the sixth chakra. That's good knowledge to have, but how you can actually make that your own is what I'm about to tell you next. So you have a throat. You have the ability to sing. And I feel that there's a direct connection between the notes that you can sing in your throat and the vibration of your chakras. So how I've been doing it this weekend is you want to sing your particular frequency of your particular chakras, not just this general idea that A440 equals the heart chakra or whatever. Getting in touch with your vocal box is actually going to be the thing that allows you to tune into the exact frequency of your chakras. Exactly, toning. So how I've been doing it, you can do some vocal warm-ups, but in your meditation where you sing, you're actually, when you start really settling into the body and your shoulders are in good position, you're breathing from the diaphragm, the way you're going to know that you have really found the chakra, it's actually going to vibrate. It's going to vibrate with you. So the sixth chakra, or the root chakra, is going to be the lowest in tone, and and in vibration, meaning not as in like judgment low, but just like the slowest and the deepest. So starting there, starting with your root and going like what's the lowest you can sing, and letting that go all the way down, 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 down until it reaches your root chakra, which is technically the earth. It's your connection point to the earth. And feeling whether or not the tone that you're singing is actually moving at that vibration. So if I do it real quick, it's really low for me. So hold on. Now you may not hear it because the low vibrations aren't very loud. They're more physical than anything else. So don't think that you have to hear it. You have to feel it. So it's really like, and I don't know if you can even hear it on Instagram because I'm doing it right into the mic on YouTube, but it's like, oh, it's really low. And then you're going to go up. And then you're going to keep oscillating up, working each chakra. And again, as you go up another few notes, you're going to be like, I'm singing my third chakra. I'm singing my heart. I'm singing my throat. I'm singing my sixth. I'm singing the seventh, and this is all within that first octave of the human vocal cords. Because of course you can do really high. You can go like, ooh. There's that point where you kind of have that crackle in your voice and you hit that second octave of your vocal range. But all within the first octave of your vocal range, you can sing your 7 chakras. And it's a really good practice to do, to just start tuning in and feeling your body and clearing the energy around those systems. So again, I go low first, but you can work it. You can just work the first 3, go up 1, 2, and 3, and then 2, and then 1, and just keep working the first 3 chakras, and then until you feel comfortable moving up, And again, it's not like there's separateness. You can also create a fluidity of that vocal range, and you're just working it kind of like the rainbow, right? Because color and frequency and sound are actually all harmonics of each other. So yeah, I just want to put that out there as far as a part of a practice that you can start to sing your chakras, and to own that your vocal box is the way to connect with the exact frequency of your chakras. And to own it. Don't think it's something you read in a book is the correct frequency. You are the correct frequency. So know your frequency and start to expand and play with your frequency through utilizing your voice. So again, I'm going to the second octave there, but try and keep it in the first octave and see how high you can go. And then a little clue in about the meditation technique that I really want to get into. And this is pretty advanced stuff because I want to sit with you and go through it, because it's very subtle. But of course, I'm pushing everyone have like an hour long, at least, meditation practice in the morning. And that once you've anchored good posture again, I like to sit on a couple of pillows where my pelvis is a little higher. It kind of helps with the lower back. It helps with the upper back. It helps also keep blood flow into the legs. But really having this understanding that if you want to get deep into the meditation and you want to get the cleansing of where you have anchored old thoughts within the body, so I call this a shamanic level of meditation, because we're there to liberate our old agreements as they've been like kind of calcified in the muscle structure or tension. So what we do when we get into our center of our meditation and we're breathing from the diaphragm and we're really feeling good and anchored, we get into identifying where we're having sensations. So that could be tension around the eyes, or there could be when we're doing the singing of our chakras, we're finding tension in our pelvis or in our hip. And so when we're in the quiet of our center space and the mind is not grasping it at thoughts or fantasy or like, virtual realities that you're dipping into in your mind, you're going into locating pinpoint sensations within the body. And we recognize, okay, what's a sensation? A sensation is a possible point of tension. What is tension? Tension is actually a thought that's been held by the muscular structure. So we recognize, right, when we observe ourselves, especially in meditation, right, if you start going into fantasy or you start going into a dramatic situation in your mind or what you have to do today, we have to make that connection between when I think a thought, my body responds. When I think a thought, something in me clenches. That's tension. That's engagement of a muscle. Could be just around the eyes, or it could be in the chest if you're thinking about something stressful, or you could be thinking about a danger in your mind, right? And then so your body kind of postures into a danger mode. But making that connection that thought equals tension in the body. So that when we're in the center point of our meditation, we go, okay, where am I having sensation? I recognize sensation is tension, and that tension is thought. And that thought is based upon personality. And that personality is based upon the past. Or personality in juxtaposition to a future that I desire, right? So we go through that sequence. In the center space of meditation, we locate a sensation and we honor it as tension. And we realize that tension is thought. So there's a thought behind the tension. And that thought requires a particular belief structure that we call personality in order to hold that thought, which then holds that tension, which then gives us sensation. So the liberation level of this meditation is to literally go in and find the most subtlest, subtle. We're looking for subtle tension sensation spots that are beliefs from the past held in tension. And then when we use the breath to work the sensation or work the tension, we're also letting go of the thought that has to be true in order for that tension to persist. So there's a connection there that we're honoring and we're working with. We're doing the body work. We're doing this body-mind connection work and liberating the two. So we're liberating tension whilst we're also liberating the beliefs that are holding that tension in place. And this is the way we're doing shamanic meditation. So sensations, we look for sensations. We honor them as tension. Tension is thought. Thought is personality, and personality is past. So before we can have new feelings, we also want to do inventory. We want to do a house call on us and say, hey, where am I holding a bunch of junk that's not leaving room for the new vibrations that I want to hold, right? So as we release tension, we release the thought. And then we have energetic liberation. And energetic liberation could be also seen as flow. The energy is no longer stuck in a particular point. Now you're like the river. Now you've got currency, right? You've got current energy and currency, which is the flow of that energy. You've got amplitude. You've got, abundance. You've got new potentials as you really become the liberated you. So that's why I hammer down on look, the minimum, and I could do 2 hours of this a day, but there are things to do. And then I think, well, what things are there to do? Because who's the one doing them and who believes that there's things to be done? I might as well sit a little longer and keep deconstructing this thing until I really get into a space where I'm feeling inspired, right, to take action. But of course, there's certain demands of life. Hey, I commit to doing this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. Eastern. So I couldn't sit in 2 hours of meditation because I got to get dressed. I got to get the cameras on. I got to get going. So of course, there's things to do that are in alignment with your truth, and you've got to get them done. But I'm telling you, an hour of meditation, and if you don't have time in the morning, then try and go to bed earlier and wake up earlier to make that time. And to do this practice of where you're, after you've really settled in and you've got your breath work going on, and maybe you've sung your chakras and you've enlivened the body, then to go into the deep, deep silence where you seek, where am I holding a thought that equals tension, that equals a sensation, and look to sensation as the clue as to where you're holding on to something. Good morning, Shaman Durek. That's really some of the basics that I practice every morning. That, again, we are seeking shamanic level meditation here, where are we holding ourselves back in our own body? Where are we grasping at an old personality that's creating a tension inside of us and a stress inside of us? Thank you, Shaman Durek. Love you too. So again, the clue, there's such a pathway to it. When we're in the deep silence, we look for sensation. A sensation equals a tension in the subtle muscular structure of our body. Muscular tension is tied to a thought that we're thinking on the subtle level, and that thought is tied to a personality that we're seeking to change, seeking to liberate. Yeah, tension is really the key. Especially subtle tension, because that's what we're looking for, right? As our new superpower is that we can see in the dark, meaning we can see our subconscious literally through sensation work. And to become sensational, right? The act of feeling your sensations. So we can see in the dark when we use this technique of finding micro tension, deep, subtle tension within our meditation practice, because that is subconscious, subtle subconsciousness held by the body. And if we want energy flow in the body, we seek to liberate the micro, subtle agreements as to a belief that we were holding from when we were 4 years old or 6 years old or 12 years old or just yesterday, right? We're all constantly having to cleanse all the agreements to what doesn't feel good to us to then get into alignment with what does feel awesome to us. But we don't have the room to fly real high. We don't have the capacity to fly high when you've got 10,000 pounds of old thinking holding you down. So really, when we liberate the micro tension, we're liberating the thoughts that hold the muscular structure or muscular tension in place. So you're liberating old personality at the same time you liberate muscular tension. And then you fly. And that's what we're really up to. So to give it a big old loop, right, as to what we've got going on, I began this talk with, hey, listen, remember, being spiritual is not newsworthy. It's what you do as a spiritual person, what you do as an energetic being, that's newsworthy. And so, the techniques that we're looking for are really the ones that lead us back to our full potential. And then that's not even enough. Being in your full potential is not enough, because then it's taking action that changes your life, changes reality for the better, aligns society towards the stars, aligning our actions to conscious communication, conscious loving, to aligning our actions to helping those who are really only eventually temporarily sick, and kind of taking what, in Buddhism, they would call the Bodhisattva Vow, and really dedicate yourself to others' liberation before you take your own liberation, right? Show you how, we'll really, like I was just, giving the gospel on meditation. We have to end, as I was saying earlier, our victimization. And we honor external reality as a faithful mirror to what we hold true within inside of us. And so we thank reality. We don't complain about reality. We don't bitch at reality and say, fuck you the way it is, because the way it is the way we hold it to be true. So if we want change, of course, we're the change that we're seeking first. We're the ones, if we complain that there's no leadership in the world, then how are we showing up as leaders, especially with ourselves? And what that means is leading the changes that you need to become first, which means examining your old beliefs, liberating those, and expanding to a new personality that can contain the full potential of what you're inspired to become. Can you even contain? Your container may be weak, or your container may not even be large enough. And so that is really about liberating the limitations that you hold to be true, which are then enforced by reality as it is, and recognize that everything's fluid. If you get into that one-to-one relationship with existence, that actually change is possible if I become it first. And of course, we can be inspired by what's outside of us. But we also seek to, if we can't find what we're looking outside of us, we're going to have to find it within us. And we become that primary resource for what we know to be true, without needing to manipulate anybody else, without having to convince anybody else, which is such a long ass game of manipulation, really, in the end. We recognize that I can have exactly what I want. And I don't need to think about anything on the outside of me to get that. I don't need to think about how. I don't need to think about when, because I can be it right now if I give myself full permission to be it now. And of course, when we can't be it now, we examine why. We examine what we believe that says we can't be it now, right? We take responsibility for why we don't believe we can be it now. And we go, why not be it now? Why not be that perfect relationship we're looking for now? Why not be that perfect status of wealth that you're looking for, so that you can go out and create change in the world through, creating organizations or creating businesses, what about your health? Why aren't you at that primary, or that premier place of health that you're desiring right now? Aren't you giving to yourself right now? Health, wealth, love, and happiness. Examining our core beliefs around all of those things and going, I've got to be the reality, be it physically in my body or reality outside of me, is a complete, perfect, 100% accurate, faithful mirror to what I hold to be true. So change begins with you. Change always begins with you. And we end the blame game, and we end the waiting game, and we end the victim game, and the tyrant game. And we become the benevolent being of gifts to ourselves first. And we give ourselves the gift first, so that we can then create massive action in the world that does lead to that collective change that we're seeking. So yeah, that's basically about it. So if you want to go deeper, look, I've got this free private Facebook group. It's called the Shift Crew. The link to that is in the bio on Instagram. The link to it is below this video here on YouTube. But it's the Obsidian Blade Shift Crew, the HQ for your breakthrough. And that's where we can go dive deeper on this. I can see your comments here real quick. But if we want to get deeper into the technique, or you want to share with me where you're kind of like hitting a wall with the techniques of meditation that I was going to in this episode, then that's where we can talk about it. That's where we can go deeper and, make sure that you've got everything that you need to become the change that you're seeking. And again, like I was really nailing at the beginning, I was trying to Google the term spiritual news, kind of like on parallel to CNN or like, what's happening in any sort of thing that you can flip open in a magazine. It's like, there is no spiritual news. There is no spiritual news other than what's happening maybe in astrology, but there's nothing like being spiritual is not news. It's the technique, the alignment of your truth that will make news in the world. So being spiritual is not the end goal, and being spiritual is not news. It's what you do as a spiritual person that matters. So may I encourage you to align with basics of the new paradigm that we're entering, which is, you've got to become the change that you seek. Everything is alive. Everything is energy. And that everything is interconnected. Everything is reflecting and mirroring something that's true, or something that's a possibility that can exist and can be experienced. So we come into full command of this. Everything is live, everything is touching, everything's interconnected, everything's reflecting itself to know itself, to grow itself. And so where do you need to grow right now? Where do you need to glow right now? Where do you need to expand? And to realize that you may not be the same person. You may need to be somebody a little different in order to become what you want. And to do that in a healthy and safe way. Again, if you like what I was talking about here, I take the audios as well as create specific audios for the podcast, the Obsidian Blade podcast, which of course is available on Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. You can go to theobsidianblade.com/subscribe and find all the buttons there for that. Or the link to that is always in the bio. But yeah, I've got tons of podcast episodes where you can just walk your path in life and and listen to the good word that I'm sharing with you here now. But other than that, I'm going to wrap it up for this Monday episode. Again, I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to be with you and to anchor that new vibration of New Earth, the Aquarian age, under the light of the sixth sun. And hey, here on YouTube, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you love what I do here, please subscribe and hit the notifications bell again to be part of the live or catch any of the special videos that I make here on the channel. As we become the Shift crew, as we become the team transition, as people who are now full members of Empath Nation, where we are really honoring our desires and creating the change that we're seeking in this world. And as always, I love you so much, and I'll see you again on Wednesday. Send me an email or join the private Facebook group. Link is in the bio, and I'll talk to you there. And yeah, see you soon.